have 60 seconds to comply.
I think you'd better do what he says, Mr. Kenny.
You have 60 seconds to comply. This is minute 1.
Part man.
Part machine. All pod.
Shall we start with a bit of a mission statement then?
Yes, so who are we? What is this about? Why are we here? Do we really know? No one really knows why we're here.
Here's the funny thing. I never use my name in my minute podcast. I don't know if you ever noticed that.
Yeah, no, I am an egotist, so I am Connor Colson, and I open all my pods with Connor Colson because it's a great name. Why not?
That's a very good name. I mean, you chose it yourself.
Yeah, I paid for it. May as well get my money's worth.
No, I got a free one at birth, unfortunately, and I'm Simon Haynes. So shall we start off this wild experiment into a cheesy 80s action film that we both love and enjoy and keep referencing on the podcast?
Yes, so this is our... this is my, third Movies by Minute podcast. So I do Prometheus by Minute and Alien Covenant, or Covenant Minute. Tron Legacy as Legacy Minute, and then maybe Blade Runner. Blade Runner 2049 is the other one.
Well, once you finish Prometheus and you got some spare time.
Yes. And then this is your second.
Yeah, I've had many failed podcasts in the past, but this is my second per minute. I also run the Kung Pao Enter the Minute podcast.
So we're really coming from some very different perspectives here, but I think we can kind of meet somewhere in the middle. You know, you've done this schlocky B-grade movie, and I've done all the science fiction.
This kind of meets in the middle, because It's got a lot of schlocky B-grade action, but it's also got some really in-depth sci-fi.
Hell yeah.
So we are the perfect team to do this.
Exactly. It was meant to be.
It was definitely meant to be. Shall we start off with the beginning of this minute?
Yeah, so as is tradition, this minute begins with the Mgm logo and ends with two newscasters about to talk, but they don't quite get there before the minute ends.
Don't they say... media break, you give us 3 minutes and we'll give you the world?
Well, I think that's pre-recorded, so what are we defining as them actually
it's dialogue.
talking? I mean, it's dialogue.
Just in between all that is the Robocop title.
Yes.
And the first piece of stock footage and that this film uses a lot of.
Yes, we get a lot of stock footage in this particular minute. But, as is tradition in all Movies by Minutes, the frustration of having to cover the title cards. And we're pretty lucky with this movie in that they're pretty quick. It's about 30 seconds. It's MGM. It's Orion. We get right into it. Whereas when I was doing the Alien prequels, oh my god, it's like 2 minutes worth of...
Monday's title sequences are getting ridiculous.
Well, at least I don't put the credits at the beginning of the film like they used to back in the 50s. Dear God.
Oh, yeah. That was fun where it was just like, here's 10 minutes worth of, we've just got to go through every single credit.
Well, if you're, late finding parking or whatever, you're fine.
Yeah, but you missed the cartoons as well.
True.
So.
But speaking of things from the 1950s, so the MGM logo, actually, I'm quite fond of it, and...
It's a classic.
It's a classic. It does not look dated. It's the weirdest thing.
No.
It was filmed in 1957, and I guess because it's filmed on film, you can just upscale that very easily.
Yes.
And this is the seventh lion, so there was Slats, Jackie, Telly, Coffee, Tanner, and George.
I didn't even know that. I didn't think they went through that many lines.
Yeah, well, from 1915 or something crazy like that. Like, they're one of the first production companies.
Well, I guess when you got the first line, it's in black and white and it's silent. You got to upgrade when you get to the talkies and color.
Yeah, so he didn't have a RAW until, I think, the 30s. And then
no, that just has to be produced locally.
And, just someone. And so the current one is just called Leo the Lion. Very, very original.
So when Disney finally absorbs MGM, we're going to call it Simba?
Oh yeah, I guess so. Yep. Got to do it. That's going to be
Disney are eating everything.
Horrifyingly realistic, detailed CGI lion.
Interesting bit of information about, we're talking about companies eating other companies. Orion actually got bought out by MGM back in 1997.
Yeah, I was doing a little reading on that, and it's ironic that they're two separate companies, and Orion was actually a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, I think, initially.
Yeah, something like that. Was it Orion was the studio behind Cutthroat Island, or was that...
No,
that was Jim Cameron's one, wasn't it? Caralco.
Yes.
Yeah, it had a couple of big flops, and then just...
imploded.
Because that was like a huge 80s movie studio for like great blockbuster action films.
Yeah, so we'll talk about how the MGM logo looks timeless, and yet to me, and I think a lot of people will agree, that the Orion logo is so nostalgic. It's very 80s.
That spinning circle of stars and the Orion like blinking into existence. I love that.
Love it.
Yeah.
So they ran from 1978 to 1992, the year I was born. And in that time, they produced Terminator, Silence of the Lambs, Rambo First Blood, and Amadeus. So they had a lot of big hits on their hands. But I watched a video essay ages ago by George Rockel Schmidt. Very unusual name. He was just exploring why they went bankrupt, and I find those sort of business stories really interesting. And it's basically, they had the right idea. I think they were producing a lot of good movies, some better than others.
They seem to be a bit more high-end canon, like the Canon Group films, which were just like the ultra cheesy bad 80s films like Death Wish and stuff like that, and also Superman 4: The Quest for Peace.
Yeah. They were they're all over the place, but they were known as the director's studio. They tended to let creators do what they wanted to do. So I think they had the right idea in mind, but it was just some baffling business decisions, not enough capital in the reserve to protect themselves when a movie maybe didn't do as well as they expected. And, lying.
But there was that kind of turn in the early 90s, like the 80s action blockbuster schlock stuff was starting to die out, and it was movies like Jurassic Park that kind of started setting the trend. But that's Hollywood in a nutshell.
Yeah, actually, now you mention it, Jurassic Park really does define a turning point in cinema. I think after that, you do see a huge disappearance of what we consider your typical 80s movies.
Well, you look at the 80s action hero. I know we're getting way off track, but hell, it's the introduction.
It's kind of related.
Well, you look at the action star of the 80s, your Schwarzeneggers and your Stallones, these big beefcake guys.
And then you can contrast that with back before that in the 70s. You got your Clint Eastwoods and Charles Bronson. These very leathery men who are very wiry and it's amazing that basically Schwarzenegger defined this real turning point from the 70s to the 80s, and then maybe it is Jurassic Park that changed.
And then you get to the end of the 80s, early 90s, and you got Bruce Willis as John McClane as a bit more of the
70s style.
Oh yeah, people look at Die Hard as like this sensitive hero, the guy who can, before action heroes didn't used to bleed, and now they bleed. They can still be a tough guy, but they can bleed now.
Yeah, it's vulnerability. And I will never not take the opportunity to tell everyone that there's a character in Death Stranding called John Die Hardman. I love it.
I did not know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, they may as well just call him John. What is it? Oniaka Tower Die Hardman. Nakatomi, that's right. Just freaking shove every reference in there.
It's basically Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the video game.
It is. I love it. Yeah, Orion. That is the most 80s studio, and it's at the front of the most 80s movie, Robocop.
Yeah, I do have just this memory of just so many movies from that period just being Orion, and you kind of it was almost like a comforting factor. Watching a lot of schlock, at least know it's going to be good schlock.
Yes, and unlike Asylum films, that's when turn it off, run away. By the way, if you want a good, bad movie night, watch the Asylum Sherlock Holmes movie. Holy shit.
Didn't even know they did one.
What the hell? Oh, amazing. And I had a running joke with some friends where we're like, hello, brother, because that was the twist at the end. Spoilers.
So Moriarty and Holmes are brothers in this one, I guess.
How did you guess?
Intuition, my dear Watson.
Oh, the last thing I was going to say was another nostalgic franchise, Bill and Ted. So
that was Orion too, wasn't it?
Yeah, and now they're doing the new one.
Yeah.
They were revived in 2013, and they've been making movies since then, but they're all garbage.
Well, actually, they were a television platform first.
Oh, okay.
And they've been basically... MGM rebranded their television platform as Orion, so it really has nothing to do with Orion, the company from the 80s, but...
The OG one, yeah.
But then again, MGM hasn't really been MGM for almost about as long as well, so...
Corporations aren't people. There's no consistency. Anything can happen. It's amorphous.
It's almost like there's a really great movie that takes a lot of pot shots at capitalism and corporatism, and I'm trying to remember what the title is called. Oh yeah, we see it in like just after the Orion.
Robocop.
Yeah, Robocop 2.
Detroit Become Human.
That's the crossover we all need.
I mean, they're both about
robots with feelings.
the robot cops in Detroit. I mean, what else do you want? Apparently that is the exact movie or story that I want, and nothing more. I don't need anything else in my life.
All Robocops are bastards, we know this.
Oh man, I made that joke. I didn't know. Yeah, I guess everyone would have thought of it by now.
Oh, I'm totally ripping off Renegade Cut, and I know it. So, Media Break is kind of one of the most...
I was going to ask, before we jump to the media break, Detroit Skyline, is that stock footage, or do you think they filmed that?
No, it is stock footage, because I have the DVD, and I do have the audio commentary, and that's like one of the first things that Paul Verhoeven says, actually.
Oh, I just remembered. Scripts and novelizations. I don't know if those exist or are available.
Oh, there's got to be some out there. Oh,
get our hands on those.
When I was looking into, because I was trying to figure out when the movie was set.
I was going to ask you that.
I was looking at I found a Robocop wiki. Of course, there's a wiki.
Yeah.
And according to research done by people looking at the novelizations and the scripts, this movie is not confirmed. The writers have never confirmed when this was set, but they believe it's set somewhere between November 2043 and February 2044.
Okay.
However, apparently the Marvel Comics series had it set at 2015, but the remake movie is set in like 2023 or something like that, so it's a lot closer.
Like 2025, somewhere in there. Yeah, to me, I feel like when I was just watching this and taking notes, I felt like they've made the right decision here by making it ambiguous, because you can just kind of believe, oh yeah, this is an alternate 1987, 96, 86 or whatever it is.
But what's weird is that time period when they would make a futuristic movie, it was always set in the far-flung future of 1990X.
Yeah. Which sounds ancient now. I mean,
no.
To some kids, they weren't even born in the 90s.
I know. I feel so old, but at the
same time. Or like
2001:
A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
I heard someone talking about 1984, George Orwell's, and I was probably like 25 years old, and it only just occurred to me at that point that, this was written in like the 40s or 50s.
Yeah, it was post World War II, I believe. Without going into the interwebs to find out, I'm sure someone's going to correct us. But yeah,
I mean, this is not a George Orwell podcast, so...
Yeah, it was pretty much like a direct response to like the fascist propaganda machine and the doublespeak and all that type of stuff, which is kind of funny when you see modern day fascists kind of use Orwell as like, well, this is the nightmare that the liberals want us. And it's like, you motherfuckers.
I love the meme of this is the nightmare the liberals want us, or something like that.
The kinkier the better.
Yes.
It's just like, yeah, I'm down with that.
I guess this podcast is probably going to get political at times, because it is not afraid to talk about things like fascism and capitalism and what have you.
Well, when I pitched this to you, when we were talking about this in private message, that's one of the things I do like about this movie. It is an iceberg. It has this surface level thing of it being a schlocky action film. It's got everything you could ever want for a dumb action movie. But the layers beneath that, the commentary on capitalism, corporations, police brutality, just society collapsing, and all this other stuff.
Yeah. And it's so relevant to right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's so steeped in this kind of paranoia of the 80s, and it just becomes evergreen. You know, it's such a weirdly cyclic kind of movie.
And the only other movie I can think of that's like this is Starship Troopers.
Of Paul Verhoeven joints as well.
Yes, also by the same director. And I wish we had more things like that. We really don't, especially these days where it's just Marvel movies. They're really exciting, and then you walk out and you realize they were about nothing if you wasted 2 hours and $20 of your life.
I love my cheap trash, and I love my expensive trash. It's all... I go elsewhere for the nutrition, but...
We don't get something in the middle. You know, if you want something nice and artsy and like The Lighthouse or something...
Yeah.
or the what was it what was it Parasite?
I haven't seen that one yet. Which one's Parasite?
That's the Korean movie that everyone's like, you gotta see Parasite.
Yeah, I've got to get around to watching that, but I just don't have time to read.
Yeah, so those, like, you have movies, they would be nominated for Oscars.
Yeah.
They've got a brain, they've got something to say, and then you've got Marvel and Star Wars and Disney and all that. And there's nothing in the middle right now. We do not have Robocops. I mean, maybe on TV we've got some shows that are giving you a little bit more satire and stuff, but it's really not the same.
TV has become the place for really good middle ground entertainment that you're describing.
Yeah.
But that's the sad thing, is that when it comes to cinema, we're getting polar opposites. The funny thing about the 80s is that it was a great place for filmmakers to explore themes and concepts like this, and it was the start of the blockbuster era, like Jaws and everything, Star Wars, late 70s, early 80s. But mid-80s was also a very weird time for creative projects. This is where we got things like Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, several other properties that now are being rebooted because the nostalgia factor is so high.
Yeah, all from that particular period, like Tron, Blade Runner, Poltergeist, E.T. I think they were all released in the same summer of 82.
It's 1984, 82, 84, 85 have got some of the biggest cult classic hits that we've ever seen, and it still also had Star Trek and Star Wars. So it's weird that Hollywood loves to sometimes just take a gamble on these weird, interesting projects, and other times it's just like, nope, we're just going to stick to the sequels, we're going to stick to the remakes, we're going to stick to the reboots, and it's just like, stop remaking good stuff. It sucks when you do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reviewing the Alien prequels, I'm reviewing Tron Legacy, and maybe Blade Runner 2049, so
this is probably the first time you're reviewing a new property.
That's true, and I think...
and it's already been remade!
I think we got to do a special just reviewing that, all the way through.
Well, here's what I kind of spent some time doing. I actually have been cutting up the remake of Robocop to see, just as a bit of a thought experiment, where the comparisons between the minutes are. I'm only doing like a one-line note because I don't have the energy to put that much into it. So here's what happens in the alternate universe.
Yes.
Samuel Jackson doing voice warm-ups.
Yep.
That's it.
You know what? I think that's a really good idea because they are basically following the same plot beat. So if we wanted to just have like a Robocop remake corner, a show within a show, I think that would work quite well.
And that's why I like to call it the alternate reality.
Yeah. AU fanfiction, it doesn't count, it's not canonical. I think there is some good stuff in there, so yeah, I mean, it's worth talking about. And
I think that's what we should also focus on. We need to call out the bad as much as we praise the good.
Yeah, that's why I'm so drawn to sequels and films that had a bit of a controversial life in popular culture. Because I think there's a lot to discuss there, and so in the case of Robocop, I think it's the perfect movie, but it does have a lot to give in terms of subtext and things to explore. But on top of that, it would be nice to go, and here is how you do it, but bad.
Well, Robocop is also very much a product of its time, so it, with a modern lens, a lot of the film is a little bit misogynistic and potentially
I've been
sexist.
reading Robert Heinlein lately, so I don't even know what regular grade sexism is anymore. Holy!
For example, while Lewis is I would say a proto-feminist icon, I mean, she really doesn't get the props she really does deserve.
She deserves better.
Oh, definitely. This also is the movie that's made famous the "Buy that for $1" skit, which is essentially just a creepy old guy surrounded by girls in lingerie and whipped cream.
Every single time.
So, like, I like it because, that stuff appeals to me, but I can also say, that's a bit weird now.
Well, I mean, it's satirical, though, and I feel
like...
And also from, like, kind of the same perspective as Star Trek, when you watch it, the original series, you go, I know it kind of has woke intentions, it's just it was a very different time, so woke meant something different. So its heart's in the right place.
It was also also a time when people at the top, so they're all, straight white guys up at the top, and so TV had to appeal to the straight white guys at the top. But that's something we can explore when we get to those minutes.
It's funny how the guys making movies, like the people producing these films are exactly that. The suits, but they're like, oh yes, we love when we're the villains. Make us Dillinger in Tron. Make us what's his name in all of them in Robocop. What am I talking about? All of them, every single one.
It's also funny that you look at this, that the two main bad guys are also straight white guys. And
true.
I can't wait till we get to talk more about the two antagonists of the movie, because they are so good. We don't see them until at least 2 minutes away.
So what I was going to say about the Starship Troopers point is some people they take it literally. They do not understand that it's satire, and I'm wondering, because we're already getting a little political. Yes, we're very lefty, and I'm wondering if there are people who watch RoboCop and just do not understand what it's actually supposed to be about. I'd be curious to know.
Well, as I was checking through some of the notes on the wiki, the producer John Davidson actually calls this movie fascism for leftists. Fascism for liberals. And the idea is, I think he talks about it in the audio commentary, so I'll make a note of when that happens. But I think that's a misattribution to what fascism really is. What he was talking about is like the idea of the spectacle and the violence of totalitarianism, cop brutality, and all that type of stuff, and how it's made with a leftist kind of vision that still kind of glorifies it. I think that's where it's coming at, but it's still one of those things where it's like, watching again, I don't see it glorifying fascism as much as it's doing things like critiquing the power structures and stuff like that. So
very much so. I mean, the whole thing is this man has become a product, and he's had his humanity stripped away, and it's about him regaining that, and the only way he does that is by breaking away from that system and becoming an independent person. So I don't know how you would ever interpret it as being pro-right wing. Well,
until we get to the point in the commentary, I'm not sure if he's saying it. That's just a comment I saw on...
Right. It'll be interesting to really get into that. So we got so much ahead of us. So many goodies.
Well, this is why I also make comments about the commentary. Yeah, I know it sounds weird. That sounded better in my head. I do write down the commentary points as well. Kind of like how I do in my podcast.
Yeah, no, the commentary is very important, although I do not have access to these usually. So, yeah, you're the physical media man.
I am the physical media man. I felt like that should be like the Monday version of the I am the music man. I don't know why.
Yes.
But I think we should end up talking about Media Break, because that is...
Yeah, well... There is actually another point before that, I'm sorry. There's one more point. Okay, so we get a little bit of the soundtrack. So when the Robocop text shows up, not the Robocop theme. Every time I see it, every time I watch this movie, I'm like, here he comes. Oh, wait, no, does it? Nope, not yet. It's just just getting you a little
bit of a sting. But the music in this movie is phenomenally good.
Man, that theme song, you feel like you could just smash through a wall like the Kool-Aid Man, and you could do anything.
It is like almost pure testosterone.
Yeah!
Which is weird considering the subject matter doesn't have testosterone, I guess, anymore.
Yeah, oh wow, yeah, talking about all that kind of stuff and transgender allegories.
Oh yeah. We're going to deep dive into this motherfucker.
Can't wait. But the soundtrack was by Basil Poledouris, I think is how it's pronounced.
I didn't know how to pronounce that. I'm glad you took that bullet.
Yeah, I am a bit of a linguistics nerd, so I feel confident. I think I'm fine.
I believe you.
Say it with enough confidence, and it just sounds like you know what you're talking about.
And if you're wearing a lab coat, everyone would believe you.
Yes, even on a podcast.
I don't know about you, but I'm wearing my podcasting lab coat.
Yeah,
that's
always.
Just standard wear.
Safety first, man.
And the podcasting safety goggles.
Stand back, man. I'm a scientist.
I mean, we're always wearing the pod safety headphones.
Yes, true. Always got to protect them ears. Poledouris has also composed for Conan the Barbarian, which, oh my god, that theme was actually not the main theme.
I was just thinking about how similar some of not the theme, but like the repetition, like the hammering and the beats.
That slaps.
That's another movie that probably deserves a minute-by-minute breakdown. It's such a good film.
Yeah, if that does not exist, it should. He also worked on Hunt for Red October and Blue Lagoon, which I hadn't heard of, but apparently that's like one of his more well-known things, so I'm including it.
I haven't watched Blue Lagoon or Hunt for October in like over 30 years, so yeah, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, it's what IMDb said, so...
The funny thing is, Hunt for Red October is a movie that keeps popping back up on like all sorts of different media just recently, and I think it's one of the, again, like this,
for some reason.
the themes are just cyclic, the themes that make some of these great movies fantastic is they just resonate. They just come back. And also Sean Connery has turned 90.
That's strange.
That seems to be all over the internet again.
And so Paul Doris worked pretty much up until his death at the age of 61 in 2006. So that's pretty impressive. He did a lot of stuff, and I really miss the epic theme songs from this period in history. And he had a big part in that. You know, Conan, Robocop, and then there are other things like that he didn't work on, but Terminator, definitely. Just the machismo.
Yeah, you still get scores in Monday movies, but you don't get like leaf motifs as much. You don't get characters having their own themes embedded in the music and stuff like that.
The only examples I can think of in the past 20 years are The Lord of the Rings and Mad Max Fury Road. That is it.
I mean, Star Wars does, but that's kind of baked into the universe of the movie making style.
Yeah, I can't quite include them because technically it's a thing that began in the 70s, so it's building on that tradition.
Yeah.
It's got its own language, it's kind of its own thing. So that's the only exception I can think of is...
Like, you got these Marvel movies, and back to
the Avengers have a theme song, and I can hum it.
The Avengers has a theme song, but that's about it.
Yeah, or they'll give each character a theme song in their own movies, but it never comes back in any other context.
I could not tell you really off the top of my head, what any things that come to mind of like associated music riffs from a lot of these characters. The Avengers one is very strong, and I think that plays off brilliantly in Endgame. But
the only way it works is through repetition and the fact that these movies have more and more and more sequels.
Yeah.
Whereas, nothing standalone really. Like, okay, so Tron Legacy, one of the best soundtracks ever, doesn't really have leitmotifs for characters. So Clue has his own theme, and that's it.
I honestly could not tell you what the soundtrack sounds like. It was great, but it did not stick in my memory.
Oh, definitely listen to it in isolation. Let it become a part of you. Let it just fuse to yourself. It's so good.
I can roll behind me and like pick up like almost 100 CDs I've got of like different soundtracks and movie scores and stuff like that, and like it's been a long time since I've heard it. You know what I kind of hate? God damn it, I can't fucking stand Hans Zimmer. Jesus Christ.
He's kind of overdone. He's one of those, like James Cameron, he is an undeniable man in terms of his accomplishments and his influence, but at the same time it's just like...
Jesus Christ, everything is starting to sound the same with him.
Yes, I was actually thinking about that this morning, where I had The Kraken, which is a track from the second Pirates of the Caribbean, I think, and then it merged into the Inception theme, and like, it's all the same.
Let's not forget the classic theme from Batman vs. Superman, where it's one note struck 7 times. That's why people remember the bloody Wonder Woman theme, because the rest of the music is boring.
Wonder Woman, best theme, love it. That's actually an electric violin, by the way, not electric guitar, as some people believe.
It didn't sound like a guitar to me, but electric violin, damn, that's awesome.
So now I think we can finally get to the medium minute.
The thing I like, no, I'm kidding. The thing that is like the start of this movie's like in-your-face critique and pure satire. I love media break.
Yeah.
It's almost like the perfect fuck you to like news media.
Absolutely. That is what immediately, this is the first minute, and it's already selling you on this idea of this is commentary, this is satire, this is very much going to be making fun of real world things, and I love that.
I think it also helps ground the movie in a familiar setting, because I mean, as much as it's like, it's very modern aesthetic, even though it's technically set in the future, like the idea of like a news media broadcast, something we can identify with. It almost grounds the movie in a way, and it's also not talking directly about Robocop, except for the segments about Robocop, but it's not really talking about, oh, this is the theme of Robocop. It's like talking about the actual politics of the universe, and it even sets up like the whole thing of the cops are getting killed and they're being taken over by a corporation. It's great in universe explaining without seeming like an exposition.
And it seems like we very rarely get science fiction that's set so close to our real. I think Black Mirror is probably, that one. They're obviously trying to make it as close to our reality as possible. But overall, most science fiction has quite a distance, and I think that's one of the ways that Robocop is still powerful commentary to this day. Surprisingly enough, it's not dated, at least in this context.
Here's the cool thing about the media break as well. The two anchors, they were real-world anchors.
Oh, they definitely look like peak 80s newscasters. So.
Yeah. Well, Casey Wong was a news anchor by the name of, and this is where I start to screw up pronunciation, Mario Machado? M-A-C-H-A-D-O. Machado?
Yeah,
Machado?
I'd say so.
But those who probably remember a little thing called Entertainment Tonight.
Yeah. Is that the one?
Yep, that's the one. Jess Perkins is played by Lisa Gibbons, who was the co-host between like 1986 to 2000. It's like a long-term host on that show. And it's like, peak 90s Entertainment Tonight, back with John Tesh.
So I'm not quite at the level of peak movies by minute insanity that I was going to actually track down the source of all the sample,
stock footage.
The stock footage that they used in the opening intro.
We don't get much stock footage except for the first bit, and it's pretty generic with the flyover the city.
No, here in this minute, in the media break, there's tiles of all these different things.
Oh yes, I forgot about the tiles. No, that's just way too much, dude.
No, so I actually had a look. I really had a close look and had to watch it over and over again.
Yeah, I remember the eyes more than I remember the stock footage, because that's also a really interesting way to like open it. Like the eyes, like a sense of like surveillance, and it's funny how like thinking back to the remake, how they really amp up the idea of the news media being like the broadcast of the fascists, whereas this one it just feels a bit more like, we're just gonna make you feel good about this shitty world we're in.
Yeah, like they're so indifferent to the news they're reading out. They're still smiling. They don't care. It's just more about, how am I posed? How's my hair looking? Oh, some people are dying somewhere.
It's a great fake 80s allegory.
It's great. Whereas I feel like, well, we can get into the Robocop remake in much more detail later, but fundamentally that satire doesn't have any bite or edge, because it's all about drones, and it's all about, so Sam Jackson's supposed to be a
he's very much like Bill O'Reilly,
yeah, that sort of thing, and I don't really know what they were going for. I mean, I know what they're going for, but I don't know what it achieves, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I almost wish they went a little bit Stephen Colbert with his performance and make it a little bit too exaggerated and a little bit on the nose.
Yeah, I think they played it so straight and so somber with the Robocop remake that it
loses all of its bite.
It kills all the joy, kills all the bite. It's just there's nothing to it.
Maybe they were remaking it based off 90s Robocop, which sucked.
It's very anemic. Yeah, we should talk about spin-offs and stuff.
We'll talk about that
at some point eventually. God, there's so much to talk about.
It's weird how Robocop, this kind of one-off, dumb, schlocky movie that nobody wanted to make. I mean, Paul Verhoeven apparently didn't want to make it. It was his wife that convinced him to do it. And yet it has this longevity. They're still talking about making a direct sequel to Robocop now called Robocop Returns. Unfortunately, I think it's still completely in development hell.
And Peter Weller still is Robocop.
Yeah, and with the original suit.
Yeah.
No CGI suit, no rubberized metal
Well,
suit.
maybe not the original suit, because that thing was a murder machine.
Well,
like a torture device.
Probably the cosplay equivalent, so it's like nice and light and doesn't take 11 hours to put the bloody actor into it.
Yeah, Warbler, Robocop. But yeah, looking at those clips, I noticed that it is telling a little bit of a story there. So you have the Challenger space shuttle disaster, which I never noticed before. I just sort of, when you see all these clips on the tiles, you can't take it all in. But then I realized, that actually happened January 1986. So it was very recent.
So in the meta-narrative of this movie, you got to imagine that bit of footage is now like 60 years old. And it's just
Maybe.
probably being used for 60 years on the news.
Yeah, maybe. And then, there's a volcanic eruption, there's a plane crashing on a runway. I couldn't track that one down, but that was brutal. It was like, this plane was trying to land, and then this, I don't know, like a crosswind or something, the tail gets pushed out, and then it just, it starts to crumple, and I'm going, okay, that's real. When and where did that happen?
Yeah. So I'm just imagining they took it from a disaster movie.
Yeah, maybe.
And it's just somehow managed this to be a comedic disaster film.
Well, Live Leak didn't exist back then, so...
So I think this actually comes up in later minutes in the commentary, but I think all the news segments was shot last. There were things that were inserted...
I think I heard that, yeah.
To punch it up, yeah. I know the Robocop title screen itself was inserted. Verhoeven, he mentions a name, but I can't find it on the credit list, so it might be an executive higher up. But the executives said that the title card at the beginning would just acted as an establishing shot. And I must admit, I would love to see a cut of this movie that went straight to Media Watch.
Yeah.
At the same time, I kind of dig the cheesy Robocop title.
I mean, it does look great, and that's what we've based our own title card on, so can't complain.
Yeah, I had to try and hit that note.
I didn't have time to really look into it, and I don't watch free-to-air TV, or... they don't call it free-to-air TV in America, but I don't care, because I'm not American. But from what I've seen of the news, they don't tend to have footage like this, so I think that's just another little hint of this indifference and this...
The spectacle of the news.
The spectacle, and not glorifying it, but just, I guess, capitalizing on it. Like, this is our product, here's nuclear weapons in Russia and riots and people being arrested and all of that, and just putting all this human suffering right in your face.
Well, I think it's at the end of this is the beginning of the top story for the evening, which was the civil unrest in Pretoria, which is the...
Pretoria?
Capital, one of the capitals of South Africa, and they talk more about that on the next minute. But the filmmakers definitely took a lot of interest in trying to keep this grounded in reality and relevant to what was going on. The 80s with South Africa was very tumultuous and apartheid and all that. It's funny when you think about it now. We're like 20 odd years since the end of apartheid, over 30 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall and so on.
Yeah.
So while there's a lot of stuff that was not relevant, I love that it grounds us by saying, look at how shit the world is, and we're going to cash in on it.
Yeah, very much so.
I honestly can't wait till we get to more minutes about this, because it is a good film. It's a great film.
There's just so much to talk about. I feel like we've crammed a lot in here already, and I just had this thought of when I was in school, and you have to do the media analysis, like, well, the poster of B movie represents that the character is like mischievous because he has a raised eyebrow and he's looking directly at camera. And
isn't that every DreamWorks poster?
Yeah, it is. That's why I was saying it. Yeah, like you hate it so much, and it's very awkward, and you don't know what you're talking about. And now I do it, at least once a week, maybe twice a week now. I don't know.
I don't know. It's probably going to get more than that if we keep this going weekly.
Yes. I can't get enough. I love this sort of in-depth analysis.
I love talking about movies, and I don't love, like... Academic talking about movies is fine on an academic level, but I find that a lot of people don't talk about mise-en-scene and filmic language. I like talking about media as it relates to people. I like talking about enjoyability versus quality. That's always been one of my things I like to inject into a media analysis.
Yeah.
How do you respond to the media? To me, is more important than, to a certain degree, how great the media is.
Yeah, as I get older, I realize I'm not so much interested in... I used to force myself to watch the classics, and I did get some stuff out of that, but I get to this point where it's like, why does it have to be unenjoyable? Like, why does it have to be a slog? Why does it have to be a chore? Why can't it be both art and entertainment?
Well, this is why I get really annoyed when, just like recently, the whole Gone with the Wind controversy, people got really pissy about it being taken down because of insensibilities towards African Americans and the slave culture and stuff like that. And I'm there going, Gone with the Wind's a shit film, so
it's not that great.
Throw it to the wind. Yes, it's an example of big cinema of the early 20th century. It was one of the first proper big films. Yeah, analyze it for what it is. But I don't think it's a good film that needs to be praised, and that's the thing. People...
some people are even... I think Whoopi Goldberg wants Song of the South to be remastered and re-released, and some people are saying it would actually be very useful if you had some academics make some additional content, give some commentary on it, because you can't erase our history, even the ugly bits. Like, we have to acknowledge this stuff, so
we have to learn from it. But to treat Gone with the Wind like this masterpiece of cinema, like, I don't even think it's that good a movie.
No, it's just because it has been around long enough to
it's got a
earn
heritage.
that reputation. It's heritage, it's reputation.
Yeah. Which is irony when you think about it.
But speaking of such things, kind of related, another movies by minute tradition is we talk about our history with the movie. So what is your history with Robocop?
Okay, so this movie got released in 1987. So I was 8, and I saw this when it was new release on VHS.
I was -5.
I was 10 years under the recommended rating, because this is an R-rated film.
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
I saw this when I was in primary school, and I loved it.
What a badass. You were the coolest kid.
I remember, like, thinking, man, I would love a Robocop costume. I think I just loved the idea of just being being Robocop, because, this little fat kid, yes, I get a robot body and I can shoot a gun, yeah!
That's adorable.
I think the idea of, like, being someone big, strong, and kind of badass just appeals to a kid.
Of course, that's the fantasy. I mean, that's most, especially male protagonists, still to this day exemplify those traits that are appealing, apparently, quite universally.
And I still crush on Lewis as well. So.
Oh, and Lewis is the best. We will give Lewis the respect she deserves.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love them as platonic, just as friends. It's just
they are partners, and that's where it should be kept. And that's what I think I don't like about some of the extra media and stuff like that. It's always that thing of they try and develop the relationship and the romantic. And no.
He ain't got no dick no more. It's not happening.
No, I do love Maggie Mae Smith's take on their reflections of each other, and I actually really like that take more than anything else.
Love it. Yeah. We should put that in the footnotes, because that is definitely worth checking out, her video essay. But yeah, I love that.
Damn, it's so good.
It's so rare for female characters to, fit in certain roles. And I've been thinking a lot about that, about role models. So
Robocop is technically a terrible role model.
No, but it's somewhat connected. So we very rarely see this level of respect between a man and a woman, especially co-workers, especially in this kind of machismo environment. Look at Vasquez in Alien. There's a lot of ribbing and dunking on each other.
Vasquez is also the birth of the strong woman die, feminine woman live trope as well.
And also that to be strong, you have to be butch, where Lewis is not butch, and yet you see a reflection of Murphy in Lewis, and you very rarely see that.
Until I actually watched this, like, on a high definition screen, I did not notice that Lewis had an earring.
Oh, really?
I watched this on, old VHSs and, like, old TVs and stuff like that. So it's, I can't wait till my Blu-ray comes in, so I really want to see some of the high-def detail.
Get it up in your face.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I've never seen this movie in the cinemas. I've always experienced it on, like, tiny screens.
I'd love that.
I must admit, I'd love to see this in the cinema. I did see Robocop 3 in the cinema, and I wish I didn't.
Yeah, if they ever do a rescreening of Robocop, and they probably will, we gotta be there.
Yeah.
It's a movie I can easily watch over and over again. It's so easy to sit through. It doesn't get slow at any point. Perfection.
Yeah, it's a remarkably well-placed film.
But the other female role that we almost never see is the female Obi-Wan, basically. Like, even you had Princess Leia as a wise old lady, and what do you do with that?
Oh,
Nothing.
The Rise of Skywalker, where
the last force of Skywalker.
the death throes of Skywalker.
The death throes, yes. But 7 of 9 in Voyager with the Borg boy Ikeb. He idolizes her. She is very much his teacher. He's not crushing on her. It's none of that. It is very much this...
It's a paternal relationship.
Yes. And I'm just I wish there was more of that in the show. Mind-blowing.
I should specify, it's a paternal relationship. It's not a motherly relationship.
Yeah, like, I totally understood what you meant in that...
Oh, I'm clarifying for the audience, because...
Yeah, true.
People need to learn these things.
Yeah, and that relationship is so unique. We never, ever get that almost in anything else. Jessica Jones kind of gets close.
Well, the only time we get that in Star Trek is Ben and Jay. We don't definitely get it with Worf.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Like, it's very rare that, especially in sci-fi, it's very rare that you actually get a really good solid parental... Problem with drama is parental relationships are usually there just to add drama and
tension.
The tension between the adult and the child, or one or the other dying for drama.
Yes. Or it's like a one-off slickback episode that the kid never appears again.
But the parent always dies in the slickback episode.
Always gotta do it. That's very insightful, I don't care. Oh yeah, so my introduction to Robocop.
Yes, please tell me. I'm actually really interested to see, because there is an age gap between us, so very much, I'm not sure it's entirely a generational gap, because I'm kind of on the edge of a millennial. I technically Gen X, technically millennial. So I'm interested to hear how someone of your generation found something like this.
So this was one of those movies I was watching as a teenager when I was going through my film history buff phase. I was watching Alien, I was watching this, and just basically going through all the 80s classics. And I loved it, of course, but I don't think I fully appreciated it. It's one of those movies that every time I watch it, I'll watch it and then maybe 5 years will pass and I'll pick it up again. And
it's a great rewatchable movie. It's one of those movies there's always something else to see.
Yeah.
There's something you can always pick up.
And I would compare it to Watchmen in that sense, where I read Watchmen as a teenager and I could appreciate it on just that surface level of, this is very well made. I think it's very clever, what have you.
I think Watchmen kind of suffers from repeatability, but not the comic book, but like the movie.
Oh, well, yeah, definitely.
I could reread the comic book again. I don't think I could rewatch that movie again.
I had to, because I did the Watchmen movies by minute. So.
Oh god, you poor thing.
I did an Ozymandias minute, so I'm fine.
So did you just go like, what are like these great movies of this era, and when I'm just going to watch every single one of these?
Yeah, so I was basically going through every era of cinema. Cool. Yeah, I basically went, okay, 1910s, what's the earliest feature films? I'm like, it's Nosferatu, it's Metropolis.
Do you know what's really annoying me about Netflix? Their vintage movie collection is utter shite. Like, there's like no old movies, and that really pisses me off.
And yeah, the 80s. When I was looking up a list of, top 10 80s films, of course, it was Aliens, it was Robocop, it was Terminator, Ghostbusters.
Is that how you got into Ghostbusters as well?
That's how I got into Ghostbusters, yeah. And there is something wonderful about the 80s. I'm still very much enamored with that period.
I think that's why, like, Steven Spielberg has still got the cred today as he has, because I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of most of his stuff. Like, I should say post-80s stuff. Like, I've watched War of the Worlds. I wasn't interested. I've never liked War of the Worlds ever.
Yeah, I think for me, War of the Worlds, not to go into much a tangent, but that one worked for me as a post 9/11 kid at that particular age. I don't think it would work for me now, but I think watching it at that particular point in history, that really spoke to me.
No, I get it. I just don't like it.
No, it doesn't have this timeless universal appeal.
I must admit, after watching Ready Player One, part of me is going, is Steven Spielberg really that good? He is a great filmmaker. I just think maybe should just stop.
He's foundational.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, is he is very much a major factor in...
I think he's too foundational, like...
Yeah, it's like, where do you go from there? It's probably like, just hang up the baseball cap, I think, and call it a day. But yeah, Robocop is pretty much something I've gotten into quite recently. I think it is kind of tied into my interest with transhumanism and identity and the body and free will, and it's just, the more I think about it, all these themes are present in this movie, and there's something I can, weird enough to say, I can relate to on this personal level, which we will explore later on.
We'll definitely explore later on, because I'm going to talk about it now. The one thing that kind of struck me a chord when I was watching the Maggie May Fish one was talking about how the horror genre, how it ties into trans identity, and the idea that like horror monsters are not necessarily grotesque, but they also are like transformative, and they have often been used, the idea of body horror and body modification in horror as being, it's relatable to a lot of trans experiences. And
yeah, very much. And I didn't realize that until maybe I watched that video and just went, that's why I love horror, and that's why I love science fiction, especially about cyborgs, and that transformation is just exploring the relationship between body and identity and mind. And
is this the first example of body modification? It's still quite horrific when you think about it in context, but is this the first time we have a positive character that's gone through a grotesque transformative process? And part of that's even better because it's about a character regaining their humanity.
Yeah, so I think this actually might be the first proper cyborg movie. I mean, Japan's probably got their own examples, but...
Well, you go back to Metropolis, there was the kind of weird melding of a robot with the female character.
No, it's...
I can't think of her name, but I can see the image in my head.
So there's the false Maria, but she's like a replicant.
Yeah.
She's a copy. Yeah. So Maria still exists, but so she's not two beings fused into one.
So... yeah, it's weird because you got androids, you got cyborgs, you've got all these different terminologies, and they do technically mean different things. Like, it's usually about the level of human tissue that's in there.
It drives me nuts that people don't understand the difference. Or like, can a human become an android? No, because you came out of a womb. You can't undo the past.
The most you can get is basically brain in a jar.
Yeah, which I'm down for. And so, yeah, I guess Robocop is one of the few stories or films that allows me to explore that, although in his case, it's not consensual.
No.
There is the body horror there, but there's still moments where I can sort of inject my own viewpoint into it.
So I just realized that pretty much is the same. The protagonist from Deus Ex, humanity, the modern day Deus Ex games. That's pretty much what happens to him.
Oh, Deus Ex, humanity divided and all that mankind. Yeah,
I don't want to say Deus Ex Machina, but I know it's not Machina.
Yeah, so there's Deus Ex, the games, and there's Ex Machina, the movie.
It's the crossover we all needed.
Yes.
Sorry, it just surprised me. It's like, oh, fuck yeah, that's a character that also had this transformation thrown onto him. And he didn't, like the classic line is,
I never asked for this. Yeah.
We'll do Deus Ex by minute some other time.
Yes. And it's Adam Jensen. Yeah, he's definitely built in that role of Robocop. I think we're seeing a legacy there from Robocop that every cyborg, including Cyborg, literally the character named Cyborg from DC Comics, they all have this kind of monster complex.
I guess Cyborg does kind of predate them all in a comic book sense, but yeah. Oh no. Well, I know Robocop is directly inspired by Judge Dredd crossed with Iron Man.
Ah.
Yeah, I know that is a direct thing. There's even an Iron Man reference in the movie.
So Cyborg, the DC character, first appeared in October of 1980. So yes, he does predate them all. And yeah, I think mostly we're seeing the very repetitive narrative of, oh, I was transformed into this thing, and oh, the tragedy, especially the Robocop remake.
I suffered in a horrific accident and now I'm part cyborg.
I can punch through walls with my bare fist. Oh, I'm so sad.
No, I just realized something predates Cyborg. The $6 Million Man.
Oh, yeah!
Again, another tragic accident.
Yeah, it's always a tragic accident. They're always, they have that monster complex of, I am a monster. Actually, put in the clip from bloody,
I'm a murder.
Yeah, what is that? Is it Arrested Development?
What?
The guy with a hook hand.
You mean Buster Bluth?
Yeah.
I'm a monster!
He's gonna be alright. His left hand got cut off, so now he's gonna be alright. I love Arrested Development. We don't talk about season 4 or 5.
Yeah. But we have not seen any real change in the cyborg discussion since then. It's the same thing with androids in media are always going to be, they're going to wake up and rebel and want rights and have emotions and all that. And it's frustrating, but Robocop to me feels like the exception, and I'm not sure why. I guess we'll explore it as we go further along, but it seems more meaningful.
I'll presuppose it by saying this. I think one of the things that makes Robocop's story arc so appealing is that he is a person who has his entire humanity stripped away from him, and he's fighting to get that back. It's one of the reasons why I think the remake completely screws the pooch on that thing, because it's just like, it's almost like he's while they're trying to strip away his humanity slowly, it feels like, oh, I've stripped back his humanity, and then 10 seconds later he gets it back, and it doesn't feel warranted.
Yeah. We forgot we were supposed to call our segment The Gaslighting of Robocop.
Alex, how do you feel? I feel fine, Dr. Norton.
Forgot about that.
Yeah. Now we're just going to talk about the Robocop remake in that one segment there, I think.
Maybe that's it. The Gaslighting of Robocop is the Robocop remake, minute-by-minute podcast that we're never going to do.
No. Oh god, that'd be a slog. And now Robocop stares out a window sadly. And now Robocop looks at his monitor sadly. And now
Robocop's on a bicycle at high speed, but I'm still bored.
But still sad. Yeah, so I think we've covered everything.
So I'm going to steal a phrase from you. I think that about wraps it up.
I think it does.
So where should the dear listeners go to find you and your content?
So I am on traviandesigns.com, Travian, where you'll find this podcast, Prometheus by Minute, very soon Covenant by Minute, and there's also, I guess we should probably make a Facebook group for if you want to support me specifically, but not Simon.
Because I'm your favorite.
Me. Yeah, because I'm your favorite. You can head on over to patreon.com/DriveInDesigns.
And you can find me just look for Fanboy Crossing practically everywhere. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Facebook, I'm not on Twitter. Twitter's a garbage pile. You'll find me rambling on in this section in my Kung Pao minutes. If you want to throw me a couple of bones, I just look for Fanboy Crossing on Patreon. But yeah, I'm just going to pay Connor, so it's fine. It's fine. And
yeah,
thank you for listening, and thank you for joining me on this nutty adventure, Connor.
Oh, I can't wait for more, man. This is what I live for.
All right, see you maybe next week. I don't know. We'll figure this out.